If Will Campbell falls to the Bears at 10, will they actually pass on him just because of tiny T-Rex arms?
Well, some do say that size doesn't matter, but the NFL may not agree. So we're going to take a deep dive into arm length when it comes to offensive tackles and decide if taking a guy like Will Campbell makes sense for the Chicago Bears. Huddle up. As always, I'm Rob Schwartz with Bear Goggles On. Again, with me tonight is my good friend and co-host, Bob Weiss.
How's it going? Huddle up, Rob. Excited about this episode. This is a conversation that Rob, Justin, and I have had offline extensively. How much does arm length matter and why? And I'm really excited to see some of the research Rob's dug into to kind of bring some data to this debate. And I can't wait to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, before we get into this is stuff that, look, I went out and I pulled information from the entire league. I have to shout out ourlads.com because that's who I used for current depth chart information. But what I did was I went out and I pulled all the information for all the starting left tackles, all the starting right tackles, and backup left tackles and backup right tackles for every single team. Okay. I got all of their arm lengths. I got where they were drafted. We're going to get into all of that tonight. So if you have seen this elsewhere, please shout out. Let me know. But if you haven't, hit that subscribe button because, again, I don't think I've seen this anywhere. So hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. Talk to us in the comment section. We love comments. It's all fun. We were trying to build this community up.
Put a comment in right now about what you think about arm length and if it matters or not. And then put another comment in at the end of the episode and let us know if anything has changed.
And if you really want to get funny, tell us if you think size in general matters. All right.
About the motion. Always about how you use it. Come on, Rob.
Hey, this is an explicit podcast. All right. Let's get into it. Again, I went through every single team. I pulled all of this information off of ourlads.com combined with their draft profiles, which has their official measurements, whether they were at the combine or at the pro days, whatever it may be. But the starting offensive tackles, 42 of them, 42 out of 64 have 34-inch or longer arms. I'm just putting facts out there. I'm not putting opinions quite yet, right? Now, if we want to get into that below 34-inch range, there are 18 starting offensive tackles out there. However, only 4 offensive tackles have shorter than 33-inch arms that are currently starting within the NFL. Again, do with that what you may. To me, without opinions, just based on facts, it definitely looks like arms lengths matter, right? That
right off the bat, I mean, is it a self-fulfilling prophecy? Is this something that, scouting departments are always looking for? So that just is like, we're going to choose between two guys we're not sure about. We'll take the ones with the longer arms and then they get to start. Or is it actually they're better? So that's just kind of where my mind goes. And I know this slide doesn't say that, but
right.
Right.
I don't know. To put it in percentage standpoint, 34-inch arms are at 65.6% of all starters. Then you drop down to 28% and only 6% for sub 33. Now backups are a little bit different. However, starters, backups, they're all that's pretty close, 42 and 41. So you got 41 guys.
60+% of the entire league apparently has 34.
Yeah, so total, I totaled it out. 65% of the league, almost 66% of the league have 34-inch or longer arms, whether you're a starter or a backup. Then you got 28% of the league has below 34-inch arms, and only 7, well, we'll give it 8%. 8% of the league has below 33-inch arms as starting or backup offensive tackles in the league. again, do with that what you may. We'll move on to the next slide and dive in a little bit deeper.
Information.
Yep. And where are we going with this? We're going to talk draft prospects at the end. So again, please stay with us if you want to hear about draft prospects and where these things might go. Okay. All right. Real quick, just looking at these starting offensive tackles here. Where were they drafted based on their arm length? All right. You can just kind of take a look here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but those 34-inch plus arms, 24 of those guys came in the first round. Clearly, that is a driving factor in what these scouting departments and teams are looking for, right? Second round is only 6, third round is 5, and then it just, tinkles off there at the end. Not as much on the other side. You got 6 guys in the first round with the 33 to 34-inch arm length. And look, 33 and 7/8 is pretty damn close to 34 inches, and you kind of fall in there. So I did not break that down. I'm curious to see how many of those are at the 7/8 mark, but I do believe a lot are 33 and a half. And then there's not a lot of guys who have been drafted, and we're going to talk those outliers who have sub 33-inch arms who have been drafted in early rounds. I mean, first, second, and third, those guys clearly, and maybe this is where Will Campbell comes into play, are really good football players, really good prospects. And maybe those arm lengths don't matter.
That's exactly what jumps off of this graphic here is that 100% of the sub 33 arm tackles are day 1 and 2 picks, guys that clearly the tape shows that they're good football players coming out of college. So that's, if you're not sure what to do, you just are looking for a prototype, long arms, great. But if you're going to go outside of the prototype body type, they better be pretty damn good players in college.
Yep. Now, things change a little bit here. I shouldn't say a little bit, a lot of bit when it comes to the backups. Not a single guy that is currently a backup in the NFL was a first-round pick with 34 or longer arms.
Well, I mean, that's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you get drafted with that pedigree, you're probably not going to be a backup. So that kind of makes some sense. But you still, I mean, I guess it's kind of going off the previous graphic. A majority of tackles in the NFL still 34+ inch arms.
Yes, 15 just in UDFAs.
Yeah.
Like that screams, guys, there's going to be some talent that could be out there as UDFAs that could potentially.
I would say be careful saying there's talent. There are athletes with measurables in
there
UDFA,
we go.
But are they talented? That's the question.
But they're talented enough to be making rosters, even as backups. So,
okay.
I'm blanking on the guy from Philadelphia who was the left tackle for so long and then came here and played 1 year.
Peters. Yeah.
Yes, Jason Peters, UDFA, perfect example, right? Like
you have 34+ inch arms, though, Rob. Is that why he didn't get drafted? Because
I'm almost confident that he does. And if you stall at some point in this conversation, I'll come back to
you. Keep it going. I'm going to Google right now.
All right. Moving along. All right, let's talk outliers. The outliers, here are those 4 guys, the 4 guys that were drafted in the first, second, and third rounds. Only one of them was a first rounder, and he was taking 31st overall, so almost a second round pick. Then you got one guy in Braden Smith who was a second round pick who at 37, so almost a first round pick. Seems like that's kind of that sweet spot right there in the 30s for those 2 guys at least. What's interesting is the Colts have 2 guys. Their bookends have sub 33-inch arms. Insane to me. Braden Smith, though, is the better offensive tackle, in my opinion, even though he's the right tackle for the Colts. Caleb McGarry is a pretty good right tackle for the Falcons. I'm not really big on Bernard Raymond or Luke Godecki, but they're serviceable. Like, they're not bad, right?
I'm sure they'll get paid on their next contract, whether it's with their original team or, wherever they go in free agency. I mean, they're starting tackles in the NFL still.
Right. What's interesting, though, I think from this graphic is only 1 out of the 4 are left tackles.
Right.
And I think that is kind of where the league is I think left tackle, it's typically the blind side, minus 2 teams. And it's typically, where they want that length to keep the defensive ends from being able to get around the end and get around the corner and get to the quarterback. So, even if you have bad footwork, but you have long arms, a lot of times you can make up for that. Even if you're not the most athletic, but you have long arms, you can make up for it. Braxton Jones, 34+ inch arms, 5th round draft pick.
Tamagotchi, monster arms. I think he might be 35 plus, actually.
Possibly.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, solid offensive tackles, but it's interesting to see just where these guys fall. And I just looking at
Tamagotchi real quick, not to interrupt. Tamagotchi, 36 and 1/8 inch arms. So very arm length is everything. That's the only thing that matters.
Apparently, because he went in the 3rd round, which means there's a guy I'm going to talk about, which means I'm going to have to move him up in my draft rankings. Is there anything with these guys though that stand out to you as far as players, teams? I still can't believe the Colts have both bookends.
Yeah, I mean, so that's one thing that steps out is clearly there's a philosophy in their front office that arm length isn't everything. They're just trying to find guys who can play. Now, I'm not well versed enough in these guys to know their technique or things like that about what they're doing differently than other guys to make up for their arm length. But clearly, the Colts are unconcerned about it. So I think that's interesting. McGarry is a good tackle, a solid tackle. He's a free agent a year or 2 ago. I think he was kind of on our radar here to see if the Bears might be looking into it, but he got extended with the Falcons. So it goes back to the point a few slides ago that these guys who are starting in the NFL with sub 33 arms were thought of to be very good players in college, and these teams didn't let arm length make them undraftable or even unplayable.
Correct. And we're going to talk
about a vast minority, though. Let's be very clear about that. Vast minority.
Right. And I think that's what the whole point of this is, right? Like, people want to talk about arm length not mattering, and maybe it doesn't to an extent, but clearly the NFL and their scouting departments disagree to an extent, right? So what we need to be able to do when we look at these draft prospects, and I'm going to pull up the next slide here in just a second. It's the last slide. We need to kind of set apart which players are just really, really good football players and not worry about arm length, and then look at guys who maybe they don't have as much talent, but they do have the arm length. Do those guys get bumped up a little bit?
So this is kind of the nature of the discussion that me and Justin had behind the scenes was it can't be as simple as 33.25 inch arm length, okay, 32 and 7/8 not okay. Like, it can't just be a binary cutoff between you're allowed to play in the NFL because of your arms or not. And same thing on the other way. It's not like you're allowed to play in the NFL because you're an All-American regardless of your arm length, and you can't because you were merely a starter for a mid-tier school, right? There has to be a spectrum of your athletic measurables with your talent, and it has to always kind of be a constant moving scale. Like, that just kind of has to be the way it goes. Otherwise, nobody, could ever go, you don't have a chance, regardless of how good you might have shown at the previous level. If you just don't have a certain measurable, you can't play. Like, that just can't be accurate. So when we get to this next list of these prospects coming in, let's see how we can apply a more of a moving scale to them as opposed to just a concrete can't play.
Yeah. And I think something we didn't really touch on yet, though, is some of these guys, even though they don't have the arm length and even though they've been really, really good offensive tackles, some teams might just view them as guards. And that's okay. That's okay, right? I mean, we got the Skoronskis of the world. Right.
And as we get into a guy I know that I want to talk a little bit about because he's still very near the top of my board, Will Campbell. He's just a guy that's a football player who happens to be an offensive lineman. Right now, he came in as a true freshman, dominated the SEC as an 18-year-old with tiny little arms. He still managed to do it. If that means he's not able to dominate at the NFL level because of his shorter arms, that's fine. So he'll either just be a very high floor tackle, or he'll be a very good interior lineman somewhere, in another spot in the line. But, of all of these guys, like he's who could go in the top 10, he's almost the guy I'm most confident in is still going to be in the NFL playing at a adequate starters level at minimum in 12 years from now. Like he's just kind of that guy. So, maybe the fact that he doesn't have the prototype body that restricts his ceiling, I guess I'm okay having that discussion, but I just can't imagine that Will Campbell isn't capable of playing at this next level just because of an arm length. Not when you know the tape, not when you know the accolades, not when you know the production.
Yeah, I've talked about it enough where I think anyone who's listened to the show, I mean, Will Campbell's the most technically sound offensive lineman in this draft class. Like he's the most technically sound when it comes to his footwork. He can get his pad level a little bit high, and that does worry me a little bit when it goes to, comes to playing inside at guard. But I don't think that's going to be a long-term problem. I think it's just I need to get used to being in a different position problem. And that's kind of what we saw with Skoronski, where he didn't start off as that great of a lineman, and he got better as the year progressed. And I think, 2-3 years from now, we're going to look at Skoronski and say he's one of the better guards in the league. We talked about the Colts and the mindset that they have. There's a couple other teams that have maybe not as drastic of a mindset as them when it comes to having sub 33-inch arms, but there are teams that do have guys that are in the sub 34-inch arm range as far as their bookends go. One of those is being the Rams, which, I don't think anyone has an issue with how that offense is run. They're a very, quick moving, a lot of moving parts when it comes to their offensive line. They have their left tackle's 33 7/8, like I was saying earlier, that 7/8 mark. And then their right tackle's got a 33 3/4 inch. And then just here in the NFC North, the Packers, they got a 33 5/8 inch arm left tackle and a 33 1/4 inch right tackle. And the Detroit Lions, who is now our head coach, where he came from, they have two guys who are sub 34-inch at their left tackle and right tackle spots. So
N.A. Sewell does not have 34-inch arms. How is he capable of playing in the NFL? I don't understand.
And the guy is a mauler, right? And he can move. Sometimes they use him to play fullback. So again, as much as I put emphasis on arm length, I think I have learned now that I need to kind of bring it back. As much as the stats and the data shows, look, arm length matters, it also has context that's missing. And where you say we got to look at it from all angles, that's where the context comes into play. And when I look at this, having Ben Johnson here, I don't think he's that concerned about it. And I think Will Campbell's in play. And is he 32 5/8 or is he really 33 inches?
That's the other part. He might not be happy about being placed in the sub 33 arm column. He was exactly 33 inches at his pro day. I don't know where the extra 3/8 of an inch came from the combine to pro day, but he's exactly 33. I think, what it kind of comes down to, are you a football player? Can you play football player? It's similar to a wide receiver. Let's just throw a name out there. John Ross, first round pick, 4 points, sub 4.3 40, can't run a route in the NFL. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think it's a 4.59, 4.61, something like that. Yep. Elite route runner, super productive, right? Yep. So there's that sliding scale between measurables and athleticism and actually being able to play the game of football. And Will Campbell, by all accounts, has got to be near the tippy top of football player on the offensive line, and you just kind of take the measurables to limit maybe what his ceiling can be. But I'm not really that worried that he's not going to be able to play offensive line at the NFL level.
No. One thing, though, that I do want to address, if you look at this list, right, and you look at those guys in the 34-inch plus arm category, there's not a lot of top-tier talent there, right? I mean, Emory Jones, we just talked about in our draft recap from the chat draft, and Emory Jones, we got him in the 5th round. His stock has dropped so much, right? Cameron Williams, I actually do like, but you're not taking him in the 1st round. He probably is going to drop to late 2nd, early 3rd. Charles Grant comes out of a small school. Holland Pierce is the guy I wanted to touch base on. out of Rutgers. He's got 36-inch arms as well. Okay. Again, the rest of that list, you're talking 5th, 6th, 7th round, maybe even Jalen Travis could be like an undrafted free agent out of Iowa State. So where most of the talent comes into play is that sub 34-inch area. This is not the strongest offensive line draft class. It just isn't.
In terms of elite top level projection, it's just not there. I mean, the top offensive linemen still. I mean, some people are putting Mumbo 1, but again, not elite measurables.
Right.
But Will Campbell is a flawed prospect too. As much as I love him, as much as I'm hoping he falls to 10. The perfect, ideal prototype stud future All-Pro left tackle just isn't in this draft.
Yep. Yeah. That's really all I got. I had a lot of fun doing this.
It's great research, Rob. It really is. I mean, it's to bring some actual numbers to this debate about why you even look at it. Well, it's because 65% of all the tackles in the NFL have arm length greater than 34 inches. It's not nothing. It's not something to be completely dismissed. Absolutely not. And I love seeing the data behind it.
For all of our old heads out there, and I'm almost one of them, I'm not making fun of you guys. For all of the guys who are older who have seen Jimbo Covert play, I know we've gotten it in the comments a couple times that he's got sub 33-inch arms, right? Hall of Fame offensive lineman. This is a very different league. I'm sorry. I love the guy. I love, living in the 80s, but this is a very different league. The players that they're going up against now are bigger, faster, stronger. So comparing a guy who played then to now, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
That said, I think we're okay, and there's proof that guys can do it even at this level.
Yeah, I'm so glad he brought Jimbo Culver because, much as I've tried to portray this episode, my stance is let me know if the guy can play football first before you tell me how long his arms are. Like, Jimbo Culver can't play in today's NFL. Was he 265 pounds, 270 pounds? Like, it's a different athlete, different game, different speed, different strength. It's not relatable other than the arm length. So let's stop that discussion right away. So all right. With you there.
Well, that's all I got.
You guys still listening here? Comment now. What do you think now? Was it 22 minutes of just not convincing you at all? Or was it actually illustrative to see exactly how the league is broken down in those buckets?
And if Campbell drops to 10, are you taking him? Yes or no? Yes or no? I mean, I don't even know if he's going to fall to 10. Yeah. He went 4 in our mock draft. So it's going to be interesting what the Chicago Bears do. They have a lot of options. Their offensive line doesn't really need a starter right away, which is kind of interesting. But if you do bring in Will Campbell, he can compete against Zamagaji while Braxton Jones get healthy. And maybe he does kick into the inside if need be once, Joe Thuney, who didn't sign an extension yet, maybe he doesn't come back next year. Maybe he retires. So there's a lot of options, a lot of variables at play. It's going to be a fun next couple of weeks and the next couple of years because we're going to have to keep an eye on these guys for years to come.
That's right.
All right. Until then, check us back out. Bear down, claws up.